Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Your leadership at the State Department has significantly advanced the fight against human trafficking in all of its grotesque and evil forms. We thank you for your great work. And we are also incredibly grateful to Ambassador Richmond for being here with us today. Your commitment is unwavering, and we feel fortunate to have you serving in the role in which you are. The U.S. government efforts across the board to stop this heinous crime is done in partnership, of course, with Congress. And it's great today to have Representative Chris Smith join us, one of the earliest advocates in Congress to really combat this horrendous evil. So thank you for being here today. This year marks a milestone in our fight against trafficking in persons. 20 years ago, the landmark Trafficking Victim Protection Act was signed into law, establishing the Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons within the U.S. Department of State. This past January, the White House convened a historic summit, as Secretary Pompeo mentioned, on human trafficking, honoring this 20th anniversary. During the summit, we heard from incredible survivors, including Jessica Hamlet, who I met just this past spring in Atlanta, Georgia, at Wellspring Living. Jessica shared her horrendous experience of being trafficked for sex domestically, beginning at the age of 12, after suffering a childhood of abuse, ultimately losing custody of her own children, and facing serious challenges with drug abuse and addiction. Despite all this, Jessica has recently completed an apprenticeship at Delta Airlines, regained custody of her beautiful daughter, which the President and I were so fortunate to meet at the summit, and now works full-time in the city of Atlanta. Her resilience, just like that of Ted's, is truly inspiring. During the summit, President Trump also signed an executive order on combating human trafficking and online child exploitation in the United States. This is critically important, especially now in a time when so many of our country and the world's children are learning digitally. This administration is focused on driving forward the directives put forth in the executive order through an all-of-government approach. Most recently, we welcomed the first ever White House advisor solely focused on human trafficking issues, as established in the President's executive order. We are thrilled that the State Department's own Heather Fisher joins us today. Thank you, Heather, for being here, and will be a great addition to the team at the White House. Thank you, Heather. This year, we also celebrate the State Department's 20th Annual Trafficking in Persons Report. As Secretary Pompeo mentioned, this report serves as a key diplomatic tool for the U.S. to engage foreign governments through its country-specific recommendations to end trafficking in persons. Each year since 2004, the TIP report has recognized extraordinary heroes who have devoted their lives to the fight against human trafficking. The TIP report heroes are from around the world and recognized by the U.S. Department of State for their tireless efforts to pursue justice for victims, prosecute traffickers, and educate the public about human trafficking trends in their countries and abroad. They have faced resistance, opposition, and often threats to their own lives. These are truly, truly brave individuals. Since the inception of the TIP report heroes, the State Department has honored 146 incredible men and women from 75 countries. These individuals include leaders from the NGO community, government officials, survivors of human trafficking, lawmakers, doctors, religious leaders, civilians, and even more who have committed themselves to ending modern-day slavery. This year, we're honored to acknowledge the work of 10 heroes from 9 countries, including prosecutors, social workers, and victim service providers, advocates, nonprofit leaders, and a law enforcement officer, amongst others. Although we wish we could celebrate these incredible champions in DC, as we typically do during the release of the TIP report, we're excited to be able to recognize the TIP report heroes in a virtual capacity. To each of these year's heroes, we thank you. Your lives are testaments to the fact that one person has the power to bring hope to survivors around the world and ensure traffickers are held accountable. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Ambassador Richmond to announce this year's TIP report heroes. Thank you, Ambassador.